Hello, Susan. Hello, welcome back. So this is a piece of music by my band from 1986, and that was our first and only album. It was a vinyl album. We were just a small little band, but we had a rich guy that used to come to the clubs and watch us play, and he ended up financing our album. I think he spent probably $10,000. I don't think he recouped much of it, but he was a really nice guy, and we have this now to play on YouTube without worrying about copyrights, so that's why I do it. Well, today we're going to pick part 2 of the Mount Sinai deep dive, and what that consists of mostly is just reading through the whole text. And I just read through the whole thing again today, the Old English is awful, and it wasn't even written that well to begin with, whether Old English or not. We're led to believe that Moses wrote it. I guess he did, because he could write. We know that because he was actually the one who wrote the Ten Commandments on the second set of tablets. The first set of tablets to Yahweh himself wrote. One of the things I'm finding frustrating about the Bible is that the way Yahweh, well, at least in this story, and it's pretty much throughout the Old Testament, is that Yahweh speaks of himself in the second, what do you call it, third person? Yeah. I will proclaim the name of the Lord, and that's him. And he uses and the Bible uses two different words, Lord and God. Lord being Jehovah or Yahweh, same thing, and God being Elohim. And it almost sounds like he's talking about two different things there. Paul Wallace would tell you that. He has a channel on YouTube. Look him up. He's probably one of the best of these kind of researchers, where he is not a religious person anymore. He is like me. He's trying to figure out the truth. That's it. And in that regard, I think what this will do for us today, it's going to be a little bit of a slog. I'll try to make it interesting by inserting a few comments here and there, probably more than a few. Sorry. I do like to talk about stuff, You like to talk about stuff? Do you like stuff? I don't know where that came from. I mean, it's from somewhere, but I can't remember where. Maybe The Simpsons. Anyway, let's jump into it. I just wanted to show you this picture again because it's so damn good. This one here. Like I said, this is, like I said last time, I think this is probably the best representation that you'll find, because you see what looks like sort of a mountain, and that beautiful mothership on top. And like I said last time, in our case, the ship was cloaked in a thick cloud. But Moses wanted to see it. We're gonna cover that tonight. He asked Yahweh if he could see it, and what Yahweh responds with is very interesting. But bottom line is Moses got to see the back of the ship, but not the front. We'll get into that, but yeah, I just love this. I love this picture. By the way, I want to tell you something that was an observation of mine. I've never got to share it with anybody, so I want to share it with you. That in the movie, I know it's fiction, but in the movie Close Encounters, Spielberg at that time, he had received so much input from Jacques Vallée. And Jacques Vallée, by the way, is really back into it with a vengeance. He's all in on UAP disclosure, and he's going to be I think a major part of what is to come soon. It better damn well be soon, right? Anyway, yeah, so what I found so interesting about this writing, Steven Spielberg's writing, is that he chose this, let me see if I can get my mouse into the right spot here. Yeah. He chose, oh gosh, it's still, there it is. He chose this place called Devil's Peak, Wyoming. I think it's Wyoming. It's a natural monument. I have a YouTube friend who I don't believe, but his name is Roger Spur, and his YouTube channel is Mud Fossils. And he claims that this is, he has this theory that just about everything on Earth is the remnants of giants and stuff like that. I'm getting a little, just 1 sec, let me pause the video. I'm getting a little notice on one of my other monitors here that it looks like, what is it? Can I pause? Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, yeah, I had a low power message on my iPad. I don't know why, because it is plugged in, but anyway. So, yeah, so Roger believes that this here is some kind of, to me it looks like a huge ancient tree stump, but it really is natural. So, but the name of it is what I find so interesting, Devil's Peak. Now, of all the places that Spielberg could have imagined to have a rendezvous with aliens, given the sort of bad rap that comes from the religious world saying that they're evil demons, it would be a strange choice to choose Devil's Peak if they actually were not evil. And it turns out they weren't. They weren't evil. They brought back the men that were taken in the past, and sort of as an exchange program, I guess. And, so why would he choose Devil's Peak? Oh, damn it, I'm getting that same message. Hang on. Jesus. Okay, if this keeps up, I'm going to have to restart the video, but I'm hoping that I fixed it. It says it's charging, and then all of a sudden it just gives me a 5% left warning, and I can't have that. So anyway, what was my point about that? I think maybe it was Spielberg's way of trying to say that we may have thought they were evil, but they actually aren't. And the funny thing is that it looks like maybe the government didn't like that message, because after that, Spielberg really kind of was afraid to make another positive movie about ETs. He went on to make War of the Worlds, which was, again, horribly evil. He did make AI, which wasn't so really evil, but it was kind of middle of the road, right? And then he did Taken, which is, again, evil, because they were being taken. That was kind of a sketchy show. I didn't care for it. I don't know if you did. But yeah, that's what I think, is that he originally had a good feeling about it, and then someone convinced him that he shouldn't try to convince the world that they're good. Government didn't like that. That's what I think. And how sad is that? We live in that kind of a world where our government lies to us about the greatest story of all time, and they're just hiding it. They know about it. And I'm not going to entertain any half-assed theories about, oh, there's a good reason they're keeping it secret. Yeah, because it would just ruin the world. Well, too late. The world's already ruined. If anything, their presence here, given in my opinion, they may in fact transform the world. Like I said, in the past, I've said that they owe us. They do owe us for all these abductions that they've done. And although most of the abduction contact, the abductees don't really regret the experience, but some of the behavior that I've heard coming from these damn robotic-looking grays with really no emotion, and they just have a job to get done. Well, I mean, I just heard a story the other night that this guy was from Staten Island, brand new witness, and I think it was on Gaia, and but it showed up on YouTube, and his testimony was that when he was in the craft, that these two beings kind of forced him down onto a table on his back and held him down. And then from the ceiling, this like probe, I mean thin like knitting needle type of thing, and it went right into his shoulder and right through it. And he said the pain was excruciating. And they didn't bother trying to numb the area like a good doctor would do. And they didn't seem to care that it was hurting him. But also they didn't seem to like take pleasure. And it was just, he said it was like they had a job to do, and that was it. And they were going to get it done, and that's it. So, I mean, if they're hurting people like this, God damn it, they owe us. They owe us big time. Not only that, but all the cattle they've been taking. And, I don't know how many different races are doing all this. That's the confusing thing. We know there are different races, and we know they have different agendas. We think they have different agendas, at least. I don't think they seem to be operating in concert. But my belief is that the ones that are trying to show themselves right now are probably the more human ones. Maybe like our cousins, so like the sons of our progenitors, It's just my hunch. I don't know what yours is, but their behavior, like I've been telling Thomas Fessler on his channel, telling him my opinion that their behavior is sometimes quite playful and not really evil. I haven't seen, except, the grays, they seem to be, possibly, and not evil, but those robotic types. I've heard different stories. I've heard recently a woman say that she actually interacted with the smaller grays, and they were just very curious, and they were with their parents, their taller grays, and they asked permission to get closer to her. And I don't remember there's something that ended up, she asked if he could hug them or if they hugged her or something. I don't know, but they were just thrilled. They were thrilled to meet a human being. So that's a nice story about little grays. But, the other guy from Staten Island, also a recent contactee. This didn't happen recently, but he just came out recently and talked about it. It probably happened 20, 30 years ago. But yeah, the stories vary widely, and the Like we have different races here, and we just don't know what's going on, But I'm very hopeful and I actually, this is just something I feel. I don't even feel a question about it. I know something good is coming. And when the government tries to act like this is something that they can't reveal to us because it's just going to make the world go crazy. The world is already crazy, and people are sick and dying and suffering terribly. And the government doesn't give a shit. You know why? Because they're all they care about is getting reelected. And how does that happen? Well, not from you. It happens by getting their donors to pay for their reelection campaigns. Then they just have to make a few platitudes and promises that they never keep, and they get reelected. Especially if they make you feel, this is one of their favorite tricks, and I will get into our deep dive here, but one of their favorite tricks is to make you think that they totally understand what's wrong. And what this does is it makes us as honest human beings think that, oh, good, I'm so glad they get it. They get it. And that means they'll fix it. But they don't. They don't, because the donors don't want it fixed. So they're very good at telling you that they really feel your pain and they're going to fix it. But then they never do. And that's just a sad state of affairs. Very sad and disgusting. But that's where we're at. So, we have a government that's covering up the whole thing and giving us excuses that just don't fly. F them. They're going to look like such fools when the truth comes out. They're going to look like, not fools, they're going to look like such liars. And they better have a good excuse for why they lied. Because national security is just not going to cut it. This story is way too important. 70 years ago, they should have revealed the truth to us. This world would be a much better place because we would have attained and acquired some degree of technology from them, from the ETs. And it would fix this world at least. It would bring people out of poverty and probably out of sickness. And those are two things that plague the world right now, plaguing all of us, even me probably. So, even me. I mean, all of us, period. But I was just thinking that God only knows what I have, because I've been told I'm anemic. I've never been told that before. But we're working on it. It might just be something rather simple, but if it isn't, I'm telling you, I'm not doing chemotherapy. Nope. I'm going to get myself a brick of morphine and ride it out. That's the only way to go. That's what I think. And that's another thing that bugs me is that we are so stupid. These are, I don't want to, insult us, but we have made some really bad decisions collectively, like allowing our government to outlaw the drugs that we need in this world and make them unavailable. Drugs that come from natural plants like morphine and heroin. Not that I want us all to become heroin addicts. But I'm saying, the drugs that they do give us make us sick. They're supposed to do the opposite. So it's just a crazy, crazy world. And hopefully someday, soon, it's going to change. It is going to change. And it is going to be soon, probably before I die. So that's my hope, and I think I should quit pontificating and get into our deep dive. So last time, as you may recall, we sort of summarized all the goodies in this story, and we brought up some things like the white powder of gold, which I think is probably the one of the primary aspects of this story that is just very intriguing, because that substance has only recently been discovered, and Moses seems to have been able to make it. And I'm not the first one to suggest that. This was not my discovery. David Hudson was the one who clued me into this. And but it wasn't just him. It was Lawrence Gardner, and also, the big Graham Hancock, who recently came into a very popular series about apocalypses in the past. I didn't watch it. I didn't find the topic very interesting. But yeah, white powder of gold did figure prominently into this deep dive. And what I want to say about that, first of all, is that I'm not of the belief that David really figured out. He admitted, I mean, in this talk that I've linked in the previous video, you should, if you're interested in this, you will enjoy listening to this, because he's just such an honest man. And he just describes exactly what happened, how he discovered it, and then what happened when he tested it. Apparently, he went away for 12 years before 2011, where the date of this talk that is linked. 12 years he was silent on this. Well, and then he revealed in this talk where he had been. He had gone overseas to work with a philanthropic group, which were hoping to cure AIDS, and they paid for a laboratory there to be built according to David's needs and specifications, and they made the stuff that only David knew how to make, and they gently introduced it into some terminally ill patients, but it didn't fix anything. Like, he explained that it's sort of a supercharger for your cells, but like if you have cancer cells, it's a supercharger for those too. It doesn't go and fix those cells. So that was a big disappointment. And so I think I have a feeling that probably David hasn't really gotten the formula entirely correct. And that may be why the story died. If you look at Barry Carter's Ormus site, which is Barry was a very close colleague of David and took over the work when David sort of disappeared after the 2011 talk. And David said that Barry said that David's probably never going to go into production with this stuff, probably because of the results that they found. But David still completely believes that, I mean, yeah, this stuff is miraculous in what it's doing. It probably is, it probably did everything that he said it did in terms of what they observed. It actually disappeared at certain points in the heating and cooling. And then he thinks it was, they actually put a little, like a wiper blade in the pan to, when the stuff disappeared, they kind of ran the wiper through it, and to see if it was really there, but they just couldn't see it. But it turned out that when it returned, the pile was untouched by the wiper. So it really had gone somewhere else. And he theorizes that it went into another dimension. He also mentioned that Hal Puthoff, who we all know now, I'm pretty sure you may have heard of him. He's a theoretical physicist, and he's been active in anti-gravity for years. He wrote a paper like 20 years ago about the zero-point energy theory of the zero-point energy concept, which has never really been proven. But, David thinks that some of Hal's work is kind of explains what he was observing. So I thought that was interesting that Hal Puthoff's name, came up. So it's all kind of like very synchronistic. I love it. So I think those things were happening. But unfortunately, you couldn't just ingest this stuff and see all those wonderful effects that we were expecting. It just didn't work. So I don't know what's wrong, but I think he was close. I think he was very close. And that makes the story interesting. So that's all I want to say on that. Now, when I show you this Bible here, I just wanted to make mention of this in case you want to get it for yourself, because this is called KJV Bible, and it's an iOS app. And I'll see if I can put a link to it if I can remember. But it's so great because look, you can here. Let me get the mouse there. So you see, these words are slightly underlined. Well, what that means is you can click on the word. Let's see if I can do it here with this. It may be that I can't do it with the setup that I have, so I'll just do it with my fingers on the iPad. Okay. And then it'll give you Strong's definition. This is really powerful. It's called an interlinear Bible because every single Hebrew word is defined in this pop-up here and in Strong's concordance. And this is the way you really learn. This is what Paul Wallace uses and everybody else who studies the Bible. Who studies it seriously, right? So I find that very useful. Also, just the highlighting and the UI in general, it's just flawless. This developer, he's one who seems to really know how to do things right. By the way, speaking of the white powder of gold, I have to mention this before we even go any further. That I was kind of thrilled when I read this. It wasn't. I don't think it was. Oh yeah, it is. It is this one. So this is like a study Bible, and it's got these. In red, it's got like these explanations of things that we've learned, and what it says here is that where it's talking about Sinai. And it said the peninsula itself served as a trading and mining center from the Old Kingdom period onward. Archaeological investigation has been limited by the rugged terrain and the political instability of the area. The most interesting finds come from Sarabit al-Qadem, which revealed copper and turquoise mining. So isn't that interesting? Because if I'm theorizing that Yahweh was mining Mount Sinai for volcanic ore from which he was going to produce the manna, and manna is, by the way, the meaning of the word is what is it? And that's what the Hebrews named it that because the Israelites, because they didn't understand what it was. They were eating it, because it was their only food for a while. But I think that Yahweh was mining the volcanic ore for the monatomic gold that was in there. Because monatomic gold is found in volcanic ore. That's why David Hudson found it. because his soil was volcanic in Arizona. So I think this is a correlation, but there's not much we can do with it. It's just very, very interesting to me. But let's go ahead and start reading, and we'll read starting at chapter 19, and this will hopefully give us more of a context for all the wild speculation that we did in the previous video. Some may call it wild. It is kind of wild, but I'm hoping it's correct. Not positive, but I think it is. Okay, let's do it, shall we? Do you want some music? No, I don't think so. Okay. In the third month, oh, by the way, I'll have to show you this map when they, so in the third month, now the third month is, third month after they got out of Egypt. So they exited from Egypt and they go into they start their trek, and 3 months later, they end up at the wilderness of Sinai. Same day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. By the way, one thing I want to mention is anytime you see italics like this, that means that word was not originally in the text. It was inserted for clarification. Okay, makes it read better. And in my observation, I think they're absolutely correct in inserting these. Every time I've seen the insertion, it makes sense. So it says, for they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness. And there Israel camped before the mount. So let me show you the map again. All right, so they started up here. This time you can see my mouse. That was kind of a screw up in the last one. And they followed this green line here. They went all the way, instead of going across over here, they went all the way down here because that's where Yahweh led them. And it only took about 3 months, obviously. That is pretty long, I guess. A pretty good trek. And they went over here, and they went over here, and then look, Rephidim, what we were just reading. So they said that they had they had departed from Rephidim, and then they went up here, and then they pitched right here. They pitched their tents right here. And what's over here? This is Mount Sinai right here. So you see that there is they called it the desert of Sinai. I can't tell, but it looks to me like there's some mountainous areas here. And certainly this is where the mountain range is. But even here, I'm not sure what that is. But the reason I'm just sort of mentioning that because it's going to come up. I'm a little unclear exactly what the text is saying we'll get there. So, all right, so that's where that paragraph is from. And it's talking about, for they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel. Let's scroll past this. And please don't read doctrinal footnotes. It is awful. It's so funny how these study Bibles, when they really need to establish the doctrine that is currently in existence, the dogma and doctrines that I think are so wrong. This is one of those examples that if you read it, it might make you throw up. So don't read it. So let's back up a little bit here. I thought that Moses didn't go up to God until he landed on Mount Sinai. So what's going on here? Well, notice the words here. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say, and then, he gives all these words that Moses should say to Israel. It never says that they met. They did not meet face to face. It was just exactly like his original meeting with Yahweh, where during the burning bush, where he called to Moses from a distance where there was that burning bush. And Moses really only saw the bush and heard the voice. He never really saw Yahweh. So Yahweh was calling to him from a distance and speaking to him, probably telepathically, I would guess. I mean, Yahweh didn't need to Moses, say this to the house of Israel. So that's important because this. So what we're saying here is that Yahweh was there. He had led them there, so obviously he was there. But when he wanted to talk to Moses, he was just off in the distance, talking to him from a distance in the mountain. Never revealed himself. And nothing fiery and big and miraculous was happening at this time. It was just more communication. Okay. All right. So he says, "Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel." And so Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. So he went back to the Lord and said that they said they would do it. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud," meaning he's going to come unto them in a thick cloud, "that the people may hear when I speak with thee and believe thee forever." So this here is Yahweh's strategy here, is that he wants the people to understand that he has a special relationship with Yahweh, and that they should believe that, and believe him forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. And so apparently the Lord was good, happy to hear that that they agreed to do everything that he had said, keeping his covenant and commandments, which he didn't even give them yet. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow." We covered this last time, so I'm not going to elaborate. "And let them wash their clothes and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai." So again, he's speaking of himself supposedly in the third person. Now, the word he's using is the Lord, which is, in fact, Jehovah. It's not Elohim. But Be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. So remember, right now at this point, Yahweh is just off in the distance somewhere, near in the mount, maybe in the mountain, or maybe close to it or something. And nobody knows. But nothing miraculous. He doesn't have his ship with him. But what he's saying is that he's going to bring his ship and land on Mount Sinai and start speaking to the Israelites, so that they see that he's speaking with Moses, and that would make them think that, okay, Moses is definitely the one who is our leader. That's what Yahweh wanted, because Yahweh was planning to ditch them later. He just wanted to set it all up so that Moses was, he did something very similar, by the way, in when he parted the Red Sea. He told Moses to lift your rod, and sort of command the sea to part. And so Moses kind of went through the motions, right? And then Yahweh did the work. Kind of silly, right? But that's what happened. All right. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Now, last episode, I kind of botched this part. I wanted you to get clear on this. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever touch the mount shall be surely put to death. There shall not an hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned, or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. So not until then, not until the trumpet soundeth long. All right, we covered that last time. I just wanted to mention this set bounds, because this was actually a fence that they were to build. And they should, later Yahweh uses the words break through. Don't let the people break through that fence. So it really was a fence. And it was the boundary, they were not to cross that. And we covered it last time, and I'll just briefly cover it again, that this is kind of a technological aspect here. Because what he's saying is that when Yahweh comes and descends on Mount Sinai, it's going to be dangerous physically. And we know that because he doesn't want any human being or beast to cross that fence during that time until he sounds that trumpet, which is the all clear. Now, why would it be or man or beast? I mean, I could understand if he just for some reason, just didn't want humans up there until he said so. But when it's man and beast, and there's a fence built, and boy, he hammers this home a lot. You'll see, it's just he really emphasizes this a lot, that they shall not live if they cross that thing until the all clear is given. And so my thought is definitely that this is a radiation-like hazard. The technology might not be radiation per se. It might be something else. We're hearing today that there are actually part of our legislation that we passed in the most recent NDAA was that people who have suffered ill effects from military people who have suffered ill effects from getting too close to UAP or UFOs, I would like to say, because I can't stand the government's scapegoating of the word, or running away from the word UFO because that has too much stigma. Guess who placed that stigma there? You, not us. So you want to change the word now and run away from your own acts? Go ahead. Anyway, yeah, the new legislation talks about, ill effects from being too close to these things. So I think we have the same thing here. There is an ill effect, and not only is it an ill effect, but it's not just an effect for when you consider the beasts again. The beasts are forbidden. That means that something about this would spread if they were to and this sounds to me still a lot like radiation, because if somebody gets irradiated, I don't know for sure, but I think that can spread to other people and, cause genetic defects and stuff like that. And certainly the people that actually were irradiated, they'll die of radiation poisoning, but it'll also spread throughout the camp and just ruin everything. So seems like that's what's going on here. There shall surely be stoned, blah, blah, blah. When the trumpet soundeth, right? We've been there. Okay. Verse 14. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day. Come not at your wives. We covered that last time, so we won't mention it again. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And by this little footnote here means in awe. They trembled in awe, not necessarily fear, but just like, holy shit, And then Yahweh said, yes, holy. No. Anyway, and this is mentioned again later about how loud it was. And that just always reminds me of Close Encounters, 17. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Now, it may not have been fire that they were seeing. When they see bright light, like the burning bush, was very bright. And also, what else? I forgot what else. There was another example. It's in this story about the glowing cloud. It's also called the glory of the Lord. But there was this thick cloud, descended it was descending onto the top of the mount, and then it says here, and the smoke thereof, meaning the smoke of the mountain, ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. Which, you wouldn't expect from a mothership, because from what we've seen, they don't cause quaking of anything. They don't cause smoke and flame. I mean, it almost sounds like a rocket ship, but we know that's not what it was. So what was really going on there? Well, I think that it was a mining operation. And I think that may have been why it was dangerous. But that's just total speculation on my part. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. See, now this is part of what Yahweh said. He's going to speak to Moses in front of the people from the mountain so that they will believe Moses forever. Okay? And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai and on top of the mount. And the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount. And Moses went up. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze. Rubbernecking, or something like that. And many of them perish. So he's talking about breaking through that fence, okay? So he's again telling them, do not break through the fence to have a look, because they will perish. And let the priests also, which come near to the Lord. So now he's talking about that the priests are going to be able to come near to the Lord, not the people, but the priests. And they must have sanctified themselves here, lest the Lord break forth upon them. Okay, so if they're not clean, if he senses that they're not clean, like they haven't washed their clothes, or they did come at their wives, remember from last time? And Moses said unto the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai. Oh, this is interesting. So Moses, in response to Yahweh repeating this command, Moses says, "Well, yeah, you told us not to come, so we won't." So here's the actual words. And Moses said unto the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for thou chargest us, saying, set bounds about the mount and sanctify it. And the Lord said unto him, away, get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee. But let not the priests and the people break through to come up unto the Lord, lest he break forth upon them. Okay. And Moses went down unto the people and spake unto them. And that's the end of this chapter. Chapter 20. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, weird, or that is in the water under the earth. Okay, I'm not sure what he's talking about there. Very weird. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. What he means by mercy here, I looked it up, is sort of goodness. He's going to do nice things unto thousands that love him and keep his commandments. Thou shalt not take so we're into the 10 Commandments now, right? Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, which meant, like when you use the words damn you, that is vanity, because you're saying that I have an in with God, and I can command him to damn you. And that's taking the Lord's name in vain. So he didn't want that. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now what he means there by holy is just set it apart from the other 6 days and keep it that way. Do not do work. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. Now, the reason for this is stupid. He goes, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Okay, so that's what you did, and that's why we have to do what you're saying. But fine, I mean, I like a day off. I like the concept of a day off. What I don't like is being stoned if I happen to be found picking an ear of corn on Sunday and then getting accused of doing work because you're picking it. They actually did this. They actually accused Jesus of breaking the commandments of Moses when he took an ear of corn on a Sabbath day because he was hungry. And they claimed that, and this is when he said to them, you guys don't understand. The Sabbath day was made for man. It's not that man was made for the Sabbath, like you're making it out to be. No, it was made for man to take a rest. So apparently Moses got this really wrong, and Yahweh didn't even care. Didn't care. So people got stoned for working on Sunday. Working being a very loose definition of what they were doing. Just picking up sticks for a fire, that was considered work, and you can't do it. Or you'll be stoned to death. So, but this is typical of Yahweh. Fucking tyrant. Okay? Honor thy father and thy mother. I like this one. That thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God had given thee. Giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, nor covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass. Whose ass? Nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountains smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. So they had already gotten the impression, right, that this God was terrible. It's referring to what they witnessed just now with the trumpet and the mountain smoking and all that, and they felt like, it's a good thing Moses has an in with this guy because he looks extremely powerful, and we're afraid that he will kill us if we even try to speak with him. Which pretty good discernment there because Yahweh was basically saying the same thing. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, for God is come to prove you. In other words, test. Go to that little footnote there. Test you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. Let's get rid of that. Come on. Oh, come on. How do I stop highlighting? Okay. Well, whatever. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. It's weird the way that's worded because he's saying, gods of silver might be, I don't know. Why does he say, you shall not make with me? In other words, you shall not accompany me with gods of silver, and neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. I don't understand the distinction there, but that's what he's saying. An altar of earth. Now, this is not sort of interesting, because he's about to say something really ridiculous. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings. So you see, even way back then, even going back to the story of Adam and Eve, with Cain making his offering, and okay, my iPad just failed. Hang on, let me pause this. Hi. Yeah, it's still me. My iPad went bad that night that I was recording what you just saw. And then a couple of weeks went by. No, then I spent like 3 hours in hell trying to fix it in the middle of the night. And then what? Then I ran into some just mental health issues. Like I was getting so angry about the state of disclosure and how the government's trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And I don't know, I just, I dropped out of my Thomas Fessler panelist work for now. If you don't know what I mean, I've been guest hosting on Thomas Fessler, not guest hosting, but guest panelist. And I was there almost every night, but I dropped out of that for a while. And now I think I'm going to go back, but not at the expense of this channel. Now, I remember where we left off, and I was just reviewing it. So let's just pick it up there. Oh, by the way, and I got a haircut, obviously. You probably have better context than me because you were just watching the previous stuff. But let's go back up to 21. So, and the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. So, heaven there means just the sky, okay? So to speak. Or on top of the mountain, okay? And then he starts making his 10 commandments, you shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. And then this is where we kind of broke. He's talking about, by the way, this is not the 10 Commandments section, but that is one of the commandments there in 23. Anyway, 24, and now he's talking about what kind of altars, and he's going to say something very interesting and kind of ridiculous. But this is what Yahweh did, is he would lie about what he really meant in order to I think get his point across. You'll see what I mean on this silly little thing here. An altar of earth shalt thou make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, and thy sheep, and thine oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And what does he mean by record? Let's look that up again. Cause to be remembered. So in all places that he will cause his name to be remembered, my name, I will come unto thee and I will bless thee. And I looked up bless just to be sure what he meant by that. And he meant do something good for the people. So, all right, fine. But we're getting to the odd part. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone as opposed to earth, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone. Hewn meaning, with a tool and all that. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. And what does he mean by polluted? Profaned it. Okay. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar. In other words, don't build an elaborate altar with steps, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. So what he's talking about there is what we call today upskirt. And of course, the Hebrews in those days were very, conservative, in terms of nakedness and having that exposed. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure where that came from. But look at what Yahweh is saying here. What he's really saying is, if you build an altar, just build it out of earth. Or if you really want to make it out of stones, don't carve stones. Just stack a bunch of stones together quickly. And then finally he goes and don't build something so big that you have to put steps to go up it, because if you do, your nakedness will be visible to everyone. And so obviously Yahweh doesn't give a crap whether their nakedness is exposed, okay? But he is saying, in a roundabout way, to keep the altars simple, okay? That was really his point there. But another point that I would draw from this is that we see already that he's planning on receiving offerings of meat. And I'm telling you, this is very weird. It's not explained in the Bible. And one of the things that people don't realize is that he used to take the meat off the altar. So this was, it was not for at the sake of repeating myself, which I'm sure I've made this point quite a few times in my previous videos, but he would actually send a beam of light down. And when I say send it down, I mean the beam of light would let's get in the camera view here, would drop, come down at some kind of speed, not like instantaneous. And then it would come down and it would consume the sacrifice and sometimes lap up the water as well. And so this was a big deal for them. It was fun to watch this kind of thing. And it also signified that if they got to see this, that their God was still with them. The interesting thing is that it does not say that this happened all the time. Definitely in early Genesis and Exodus, like this. But later on, when sacrifices were made, it doesn't mention whether fire came down. I mean, there's a lot of incidences of it, but then it seems like it trickled off. And at some point, I don't think the sacrifices were even taken anymore. So what does that mean? I don't know. Like I said, I draw a connection with these sacrifices all the way back from Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, really, where Cain's sacrifice was the vegetables, and Abel's sacrifice was meat, and the Lord took Abel's sacrifice with that beam of light, and but he he did not take Cain's sacrifice, and so Cain got wroth, as they say in the Old English, and his countenance fell. And who can blame him? I mean, what the hell was wrong with his sacrifice? Or is it that, I mean, how stupid can you be to upset someone like to that degree as a god, and upsetting Cain, and then Cain turns around and kills Abel because of this whole incident, because he felt disrespected. And, it's just disgusting to think that it was unprovoked, that there was something wrong with Cain, when in fact it looks like it was just, I mean, there is something wrong. I mean, he shouldn't have become murderous over that. But at the same time, you don't know what was going on with Cain. But I do track this all the way back to, from there, I trace that all the way forward to now, where we have cattle mutilations being done, and we know that it's extraterrestrial source that's doing this. And we know that because we've seen multiple witnesses describe a beam of light in which the cow is raising. They have never seen, by the way, it's just interesting side point, they've never seen the actual ship above this beam of light, which, we've seen ships before, and we've seen beams of light come from them. Not on any good videos, really, other than Carlos Diaz's. But, but what was I going to say about that? But they don't see the ship for some reason, but they have seen the beams. And we don't have technology like a tractor beam that can lift up a cow. And neither do we have really a need for cows to be lifted up into a ship. It's obviously ETs that are doing this. And the question is, if as I say, the gods of the Bible, Yahweh and the angels, etc., they may have all needed this for the same reason that the ETs need it today, which is some sort of sustenance. But it's not from just having a great steak dinner. No. What they're doing is they're not even actually taking the meat. They're taking the blood and a few select organs and making some sort of substance. Well, according to only one witness from Linda Moulton Howe's research, there's only been one witness that was actually told. He was taken up on the ship, and the ETs explained to him what they were doing with the cow, and it definitely had something to do with sustenance. Okay, so why in the world would there be any other reason for Yahweh to set up this sacrificing thing? Sacrificing meat and dead animals and blood. It's and then to turn it around and twist it into this is for forgiveness of sins. You give us what we need and we'll forgive you. It's really sickening to me. Anyway, let's carry on. So that's the end of that chapter, and let's move to the next. Okay, this being read means that it is uninteresting, and I think the whole chapter is this way. Yeah, it is. So what this is all instructions about laws and stuff like that, and very uninteresting as regards our subject. So we're going to skip past that one, 21, move to 22, which is also a continuation of that same thing, laws, do this, do that. I always, when I always think of doing and not doing, there's a great line from Stephen Sondheim, one of his plays. What was it? A funny thing happened on the way to the forum, maybe. And in the play, it's sort of a play within a play, and before the play begins, the master of ceremonies comes out, and he's gay, and he's saying, and before we start, just a few do's and don'ts, mostly don'ts. Yeah. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks. I'll be here all week. Next one is read again. So, yep, not interesting. Trust me. You can go back and look at these. They're not interesting. They're just a bunch of minutia and laws and stuff. Okay, now we've got some white text. Now we can start reading. And he said unto Moses, come up unto the Lord, thou, and Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off. Now, look at how he words this, and this is throughout this book here. He says, come up unto the Lord. Why not come up unto me? Right? But I mean, I'm just saying, and I'll dig into this a little bit more as we're reading. But there, and I think I mentioned it prior, didn't I? In this, the earlier part of this video, where there's a distinction. He speaks about himself in the third person, and he mixes up, me and the Lord. The Lord being the word for Jehovah, I believe. So let's double click that. Yeah, Jehovah. And the other word, God, is Elohim. And I just wonder sometimes if there was like more people up there. I'll get to that when we get to it. Okay. And he tells them to worship afar off. Don't know what he means by worship. I think he means sort of bow down. I mean, I looked up the word the other night in Strong's, and it has a lot to do with just sort of bowing down. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. And Moses alone shall come near the Lord, but they shall not come nigh, neither shall the people go up with him. So he tells Moses to pick these people here. Get my mouse into the iPad if I can. No, I can't. All right. But he doesn't want the general population, of the whole group. That's what he means by the people. And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord hath said will we do. So they were ready to cooperate. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord and rose up early in the morning and builded an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. It sounds like he's getting dangerously close to making an elaborate altar, but hopefully he won't be smited for that. And he sent young men of the children of Israel which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. So apparently those basins were for the Lord to take that blood. Okay? Then he took some of it and sprinkled it on the altar. But the bases, and you'll see that he does take it. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the audience of the people. And they said, all that the Lord has said will we do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. It reminds me of like when we were kids. I don't know if you did this, but when I was a kid, this was ancient days ago. Us kids used to, we would prick our fingers, to make a covenant between us, to make a secret. It was a blood oath. Probably you still know about this. Probably it still happened. I just haven't heard of it. But each of us would, prick our fingers and then put our blood together. Oh my God, sharing blood. That's just so unpolitically correct today. You don't know what the hell you're going to get, right? But back in those days, that's what we did. And I wonder, whether that comes from the Bible. I bet it does. I mean, not that the Bible ever instructed this, but I think that habit sort of came from the idea of a blood being involved with a covenant and a secret, that we, or at least a commitment to each other. So, anyway, so you've got Moses sprinkling blood on the people, saying, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. Let me pause it for a sec so I can get my mouse onto the iPad. Okay, good to go. Blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you. And then went up Moses, Aaron, and Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in his clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid not his hand. Also they saw God and did eat and drink. And again, just to reiterate, when they say he laid not his hand, they mean that he did not smite them for seeing him, because his law was that no one shall see his face and live. Very mysterious law, but I've already elaborated on that earlier, I think. It's been a while since, for me, it was a couple of weeks. For you, it was just a few minutes ago. Okay. And the Lord said unto Moses, come up to me into the mount, and be there, or be square. And I will give thee tables of stone, and a law, and commandments, which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. And he said unto the elders, tarry ye here for us, until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And the reason he's saying this is that at this point, before this point, or up until this point, Moses was the one who had to arbitrate everything. Any matters of grievances that the people had against each other, they would take it before Moses and he would make a judgment. So he was saying here that he's delegating to some others while he's gone. And he even said, tarry here for us. So he did not expect to be gone long. And guess how long he was gone? 40 days and 40 nights. Now look, I understand that 40 is the biblical scholars say that 40 often just meant a long time. Okay, so like 40 years in the wilderness, it might not have been exactly 40. Could have just been something long, a great number of years, not necessarily 40. But the thing is, when you're speaking of days, 40 days, whether it's 30 or 45, it's an extremely a long time to be up there. And I don't think Moses expected to be up there that long, because he actually told his folks to wait here for him. And they were not, and that was like near the mountain. So, and Moses, let's continue. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. So you see, this is biblical speak again for the same thing. The cloud is the glory of the Lord. Okay? A cloud covered the mount, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Now, I think I talked about this earlier on in the previous section of the video, but I'm going to hit it again, because this is one thing that I did not bring up in the previous reading, and it is really one of my most recent. I think within just a few months ago, I came up with this one as I was thinking about the events. And I think I might be right on this. So let me tell you, first of all, what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is that when he says here that the cloud was covering the mount, and let's go on a little bit before I make my point. On 17 it says, and the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount and in the eyes of the children of Israel. Again, devouring fire meaning just glowing brightly. And for them, that could only mean one thing, that it was fire. But they said it was like devouring fire. And they knew it wasn't fire, but there was nothing else to compare it to. But here's the thing. So Moses, God, the Lord called him up. Yahweh called him up into the mount and into the cloud, actually, and but he made him wait there 6 days, six whole days before he then finally called unto him, and then brought him in further into the mount, where he was then with God, with Yahweh, for 40 days and 40 nights. So my question here is, and I know I covered this in the previous section, but I'm going to hit it again. The question is, why did the Lord call him up? Why did Yahweh call him up 6 days before he was going to call him into the spaceship? That's what I'm going to say it was. And because if he really wanted Moses to come visit him, and he had some things to take care of that were going to take maybe 6 days to take care of, then he could just call Moses when he was ready for him. But no, that's not the way it went down. He called him up and made him wait 6 days in that cloud, the glory of the Lord. Well, I'm going to say that the reason for that was because Moses needed to be acclimated to the perhaps dimension or vibrational rate that Yahweh lived in his ship. Okay, and then this explains possibly why it was 40 days and 40 nights for the people on the ground, but not for Moses and Yahweh. Okay, so going back to Alec Newell again, he wrote a book called Coevolution. And what he described was that when he was abducted and by these folks who were not exactly grays, but they were about the same size, and they were explaining to him that they lived in a frequency zone. They didn't use the word frequency, but they lived in a, we're going to say frequency because we don't have any other term for it. They lived in a dimension or a frequency that was inaccessible for us, and likewise from them too. Well, I think they could reach out, but for us to be able to see them and their world, there needed to be an acclimation period during, and in fact, when Alec was first abducted, he described being in a sort of nowhere land where he couldn't see anything. He didn't even feel like he had a body. But after a number of hours, I'm going to say 24, it was something like that, then he eventually started to be able to see. And then that's when the aliens introduced themselves and took him on board their ship. So there was an acclimation period there. In fact, one thing I didn't mention last time in the earlier part of this video was that Alec, they had explained to Alec that they were actually in a bad way, because on their home world, which was a rather dry planet, and it was dying. The sun was too hot, and the planet was drying up, and they were trying to make what happens normally with suns happen with their sun. Now, what do I mean by what happens with suns? Well, it was described to him that the sun in every solar system eventually does something. It emits like a plasma micro supernova, right? And the plasma does something to every single life form on the planet. It raises the vibration of that life form into a higher dimension, which is really a great thing. It's almost like graduation day. And it's so interesting that it starts with the sun. But they were aware of this, and they wanted this to happen. They saw it as an answer to all of their problems. And they were also very scientifically, advanced, way beyond us. They actually had the ability to make an attempt to make their sun do this thing that suns normally do in the course of time. They wanted to advance it and make it happen right away. And in doing so, they really screwed themselves up, because what happened was it sort of worked. They did shift into a higher frequency or a higher different dimension, but it was not enough. They didn't shift enough into the dimension that they were supposed to actually arrive in, which is where a lot of other living beings live. So now they were in kind of like a no man's land of, they were isolated from everyone. And so that they felt that this was a great mistake. And in fact, his female host, who was a hybrid, probably between human and her own species, she explained that, well, she didn't explain, she just said it was very embarrassing for their people. I mean, they were very embarrassed that they made this mistake, and they're embarrassed about the whole thing. They want to fix this, and they need to correct what they did, because now they're all living in this kind of, no zone. So, believe it or not, that's the story. And I'm thinking that Yahweh, if we come back to our story, I'm thinking that Yahweh probably lives in a different dimension. And in that dimension, time may be passing much differently, at a different rate than it is for the people on the ground. So for the people on the ground, Moses was gone 40 days and nights. But for Moses and Yahweh, it may have only been a day. Okay? There's a temporal distortion here that I'm thinking explains everything. It explains why the people gave up on Moses. Nobody expected him, including Moses himself. Nobody expected him to be up there for 40 days and nights. It just wouldn't have taken that long. I mean, none of his other visits took anywhere near that long. They were more like normal visits, 1 hour or something like that. So that's what I think is happening here, and why that's important is because, I think we covered this, and we're gonna be coming to that yet. Well, when we come to it again here, I know I talked about it last time, but when we come to it again, I'll get into what I was just gonna say. Okay, so like a devouring fire on top of Mount Sinai in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went up into the midst of the cloud and gat him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. Next chapter is red, so yes. Oh, but it's not all red. Yeah. So the only reason I had this white section here is because it's a critical part of my discussion about the Ark of the Covenant, but also known as the Ark of the Testimony. But I'll cover that in a separate video about the Ark. What an amazing story. You will not believe the kind of high-tech things that happen with the Ark. It's probably I shouldn't have called this story the most technologically apparent story, because the one about the Ark is just, there's just no question after you watch me present it, you'll be left with no question that this was technology. It was not anything else. But what kind of technology, still, we have no idea, really. Okay, so let's go to the next chapter. Gosh, are we getting close to the end of this? Let's see here. I think there might be one more. That might be it. Come on, go to the next chapter. Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we're not at the end yet. All right, so all that stuff that I just skipped is just uninteresting minutia, or unrelated to our story, and unrelated in the sense that I want to stick with what happened right here with Moses and Elijah, and I'll cover the ark stuff in a separate video, and which I already have, by the way, but I'm doing all my things over because repeating is the best way. I don't expect people to go back and look at old videos. That's just, people don't do that, and I don't really like doing that, so I don't mind repeating stuff if you don't mind. All right. So here we are in chapter 32 after skipping a couple of really dense, uninteresting stuff. 32. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron agreed and said unto them, Break off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters. By the way, the sons wore earrings too. I like that. But that's just me, you know me, gender dysphoric, right? I would have rather been a girl. Too late. But, quick story on that. I spoke with God about this, and I said, I'm a male lesbian, God. And he goes, yeah, I know. Of course, a male lesbian is someone who would rather be a woman but still wants to be with women. So that makes you a male lesbian. And so I said to God, but when I get to heaven, I'll request a female body, and then I'll finally be a real lesbian. And he said, no, but you'll be a male lesbian in a female body. And I just said, okay. There is no getting away from the fact that who you are is who you are. Again, I'll be here all week. Thanks. Try the veal. Okay, so we're talking about breaking off earrings that are in the ears of all the people, and of course, just a reminder, they got all this gold from their Egyptian neighbors on instruction from Yahweh. Yahweh told them to borrow as much silver and gold jewels as they could from their neighbors before the night before the Exodus. And that's because he knew that he wanted to do something with that gold. But it wasn't to make a golden calf, that's for sure. He wanted to make the Ark of the Covenant. Anyway, verse 4 here. And Aaron received those jewels at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool. And after he had made it a molten calf, and after, God, okay. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it what? With a graving tool. After he had made it a molten calf. So probably should have said, and he made it a molten calf and then fashioned it with a graving tool. And they said, These be our gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. Okay, so let's recap. We have the people of Israel that they've said that they would be obedient, and they were earnest in that. They weren't they weren't lying. They really intended. I mean, after all, he impressed the heck out of them with everything he had done so far. So yeah, they were saying that they certainly would be obedient. But while he had gone up, they wondered what happened to him, and 40 days and nights had passed. Now, again, I say that probably for Yahweh and Moses, it was only a day or two. But because of the temporal displacement between what was going on in the ship and what was going on down with the people. And by the way, these anti-gravity ships, I mean, they're using a gravity field, electromagnetic field that affects the gravity, okay? And so gravity and time are all interwoven. We know this from science, at least in theory, right? Well, actually, no, not in theory, because they've actually proven that the less gravity there is, the faster a clock will move. And conversely, the more gravity there is, the slower a clock will move. And so we know that there's a relationship with gravity and time. And that's why I think that what happened here was what I described. And that's why I think it is so unreasonable for what happens next. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go, get thee down, for thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Which is a very interesting term. And what does the footnote say? Wrong footnote. Stubborn. So stiff-necked and stubborn. Same thing. So Yahweh is saying they're a stiff-necked people, and probably saying that they're disobedient. But is that the truth? After being gone for 40 days, they had no idea. Here they are in the middle of the wilderness, right? They don't know where they're going next. Moses is the only one who has a connection with God, with Yahweh. So Moses is gone. And the people are wondering what to do next. And so they revert back to their old ways. They think Moses is gone forever. And who can blame them for that? I don't. But I blame Yahweh for getting angry. Because look how angry he gets. He wants to smite them all. You're going to see that in a sec. I mean, we saw it in our previous part 1 video. But Jesus, I mean, so... And Moses, so here's what Yahweh says. It's a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them. And I will make of thee a great nation. See, but this is the promise that he gave to Abraham, was that he would make of Abraham a great nation. And now he's saying, oh, screw that, let's kill them all. And, even after he got them into Egypt, and they were there, God, I think 400 years. And, that was to get them to multiply, and they did multiply. And then they come out, and he gets them out into the wilderness, and then just wants to kill them all for having made the molten calf, like they were disobedient. Disgusting. And so Moses now has to talk Yahweh out of smiting the people. And Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, for mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath, and repent of this evil against thy people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou swarest by thine own self, and saidst unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I will give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tables of testimony were in his hands. The tables were written on both their sides, on the one side and on the other were they written. And the tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tables. And then when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. And he said, meaning Moses, it is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. And that's because Aaron had said, after he built the calf, tomorrow a feast. And they did all those burnt offerings. So clearly they still believed in some Lord, right? They wouldn't have been making offerings to their God, if they didn't believe in him. They just thought that Moses was gone. And so they kind of reverted back to what they knew in Egypt, which apparently was their way before the Exodus. And it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh unto the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. And Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tables out of his hands and brake them beneath the mount. Now, here's where we get into the remarkable connection to the white powder of gold. And he took the calf which they had made, and burnt it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and strawed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink of it. So I'm not going to belabor this because we went into this pretty heavily in the last section of this part 2, right? We covered the white powder of gold, and but in a nutshell, I'll just summarize it since it's been a while for me, that this material, which has recently been rediscovered, probably not the exact formula, unfortunately, but it was called the white powder of gold, and in the days of old, it was called the philosopher's stone, and it was gold, but yellow gold, which had been converted through a alchemical process of heating and cooling in a special bath of herbs and stuff, a special liquid bath, and they would heat and cool multiple times, over and over and over again, until all the metallic bonds would break down, and the gold was now in a state that you could crush it, like it was made out of sandstone. You could just crush it into a powder. And this is what I think Moses did, because we know that the Egyptians, well, we don't know, but I mean, there's a lot of evidence that has been researched by Lawrence Gardner and Graham Hancock about the fact that the Egyptians did have the formula for this stuff. It was probably given to them by, the original pharaohs, which were actually extraterrestrial, right? And then so they had this secret, and they knew how to make this stuff out of regular gold, and the reason it's called the Philosopher's Stone is because it can be in a stone form, and all you have to do is crush it into a powder. So it looks like that's what Moses did here. He used heat. Remember, it says it burnt it in the fire, and that matches up with the alchemical recipe for the stuff. And ground it to a powder, yes, and strawed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink of it. So you know right off the bat that if this was real gold and not, converted into white powder of gold, none of this would make sense. You can't just grind gold to a powder after heating it in the fire. It doesn't work. And if you did so, and if you happen to have a file, which you could make gold dust shavings out of the gold, if you just made a bunch of gold dust and threw it in the water, it would just sink to the bottom, and there'd be nothing to drink. But he actually, apparently, this stuff is more soluble in water, and does not have that metallic property anymore. So apparently, you can mix it with water, and the children of Israel were made to drink of it. Now, it's an odd thing to do, right? Period. And the Bible doesn't explain it at all. But with 21st century eyes, we can understand, I think, that that the only explanation for this has to be the white powder of gold. And so that's where I'm putting my money, okay? Oh, and the one more thing I was going to say was, why would you do something like this? Why would Moses do this? He was very angry, yes, but as a punishment, you don't do something this detailed, this making them drink of it. There's something going on there, right? Well, if you ingest the Philosopher's Stone, or the white powder of gold, you're supposedly going to reap all the benefits of this material. And one of those benefits, is great, perfect health, supposedly, and also telepathic connection, biotranslocation, weightlessness, long life, like 1,000 years. These were all the ancient descriptions of what this material could do. So it seems to me that Moses was trying to improve them as a people by making them drink some white powder of gold. That's my best guess as to why he would do that. Okay, let's carry on. And Moses said unto Aaron, why did this people unto me, unto thee? What did this people? Oh, Jesus, sorry. And Moses said unto Aaron, what did this people unto thee, that thou hast brought such a great sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord wax hot. Thou knowest the people, that they are set on mischief. Well, now Aaron is kind of like changing his tune a little bit, because he's blaming the character of the people. For they said unto me, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And I said unto them, whosoever hath any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf. So it sounds like Aaron is kind of saying, hey, this calf just kind of came out. Not exactly what happened. Because Aaron actually fashioned it, he did the finishing. He's the one who made the thing. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. I don't know exactly what was special about the sons of Levi, but they were the ones that were trusted to be the priests. I guess Yahweh trusted them the most. We know that the Levites were the sort of the carriers of the law, So they were the one tribe of the 12 that were given kind of special status in that regard. And he said unto them, so the people of the sons of Levi gathered themselves unto Moses. And he said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel. But here's the thing. Did the Lord God of Israel actually say this? I don't know, because we have no mention of it in the Bible. But here he is saying that the Lord Yahweh said, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. Can you imagine being commanded to go out and slay your own brother if he's not part of your Levi tribe, for example? And every man his companion. Oh, I'm going to slay my companion. And every man his neighbor. And now get this. And the children of Levi did, according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. Now, the pastors, if they ever dare venture into this ground, which is rare, they will say that the excuse for this is that, well, these were just really horribly disobedient people, and they just needed to be culled. The bad ones needed to be culled. And so, everyone who was on the side of Moses, which meaning the Levi tribe, they went out and slayed 3,000 men in the camp. Jesus Christ. For Moses had said, consecrate yourselves today to the Lord. Hang on a sec. Consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses said unto the people, Ye have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up unto the Lord. Peradventure I shall make an atonement for your sin. And Moses returned unto the Lord and said, Oh, this people have sinned a great sin, and have made them gods of gold. Yet now, if thou wilt forgive thy sin, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book which thou hast written. And the Lord said unto Moses, Whosoever hath sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Therefore now go, lead the people unto the place which I have spoken unto thee. Behold, mine angel shall go before thee. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. And the Lord plagued the people because they made the calf which Aaron made. So it wasn't enough to just go and slay 3,000 men. The Lord Yahweh also plagued them because they made the calf. So that was their punishment, to have a plague. And the Lord said unto Moses, Depart and go up hence, thou and thy people, thou and the people which thou hast brought up out of the land of Egypt. It's interesting how Yahweh is saying that Moses brought them up out of Egypt, but it was really Yahweh. But Yahweh always wanted Moses to get the credit because he wanted Moses to take Yahweh's place, basically, to be Yahweh's number one, and because Yahweh was not planning to make any kind of appearance after this. This was it at Mount Sinai, and it was, in fact, it. Okay, and the Lord said unto Moses, Depart and go up hence, thou and the people which thou hast brought up out of the land of Egypt, unto the land which is the land of milk and honey, Israel, which I swear unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, Unto thy seed will I give it. And I will send an angel before thee, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. For I will not go up in the midst of thee, for thou art a stiff-necked people, lest I consume thee in the way. It's like, I can't stand to see your face. If I do, I'll kill you. That's kind of like what he's saying. It's just very bizarre. And when bizarre, it's just fascist. And when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned, and no man did put on him his ornaments. For the Lord had said unto Moses, Say unto the children of Israel, Ye are a stiff-necked people. I will come up into the midst of thee in a moment, and consume thee. Therefore now put off thy ornaments from thee, that I may know what to do unto thee. And the children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments by the Mount Horeb. So I'm thinking right now that this is where the rest of the gold came from to make the Ark of the Covenant. Supposedly they had taken off their ornaments to make the golden calf, but now Yahweh is telling them to take off their ornaments, and he doesn't explain why. He just says, take off your ornaments and let me think on what I'm going to do with you. Okay. And by the way, Horeb is the same as Sinai. And Moses took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the Tabernacle of the congregation. And it came to pass that everyone which sought the Lord went out unto the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp. And it came to pass, when Moses went out unto the tabernacle, that all the people rose up and stood every man at his tent door and looked after Moses until he was gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass, as Moses entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and the Lord talked with Moses. So remember that tabernacle is that tent. It's like a temporary temple that was recreated then in splendor in Israel at called the Temple of Solomon, and inside of there was the Holy of Holies compartment, which was deep inside the temple at the end of it, and protected by curtains. And inside of there was the Ark of the Covenant. And so it was believed that the Lord sort of lived in the ark, or at least his presence was there. And manna, which was kept in the ark, was also described in the Bible as the flesh in which divinity resides. So in that powder, that white powder of gold, supposedly it was the flesh in which divinity resides, where God resides. So that's why they felt that God was in the ark. And I'll explain in my Ark of the Covenant video, and if you can't wait, there's already one out there. But I'll explain in that when I repeat it, when I remake that video, that that the Lord actually appeared to Moses there from sitting on the ark as a miniature little person. Inside the smoke that was created by the special incense that was commanded to be burned to create a large cloud, and then the actual face of Yahweh, his whole body, I think, was in view in that cloud. And this is how it is said that Moses spoke face to face with God, and then with Yahweh. And then Yahweh explained that the purpose of the incense was to somewhat shroud his face so that Moses wouldn't die from looking at the face of Yahweh. But I think the real reason for the smoke was to allow some sort of holodeck type of projection. You have to have something in the air in order to make a 3D image, and smoke does it well. But it wasn't just any smoke. It was very specific about which materials should be used for this incense. And if you didn't use the right material or the right coals to burn that incense, and Aaron and his sidekick, who were in charge of that, got drunk one night and used what the Bible describes as strange fire for the coals instead of the fire that they were directed to use, which was, I guess, kept inside the tent. And for their discretion, just using the wrong coals, they were killed on the spot in a dramatic way by the ark itself. So be sure to tune in for that, because that is a remarkable, that whole story is just remarkable. All right, so now we're talking about that cloudy pillar again, and we're talking about the tent. And so every time Moses was to speak with God, with Yahweh, this pillar of light would come down and descend on right at the door of the tent. And everyone got to see that. It was really a remarkable event. And they had seen it before. It had helped lead them out of Egypt, and especially at the edge of the sea that was parted, the beam was keeping the Egyptians out until away, keeping them at bay until the Israelites could cross over. And then once they were safely crossed over, the beam was retracted, and so the Egyptians thought they were free to cross over as well. But when they crossed over, in the midst of it, the water came rushing back, and they were all drowned. So that was how that worked. And all the people saw the cloudy pillar stand at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose up and worshipped, every man in his tent door. So again, worshiping meaning just bowing down. So, and the Lord spoke unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. And he turned again into the camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle. And Moses said unto the Lord, See, thou sayest unto me, Bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know, whom thou wilt send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, shew me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, My presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto them, If thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in thy sight? Is it not in that thou goest with us? So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth? And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name. Okay, and I'm not going to go into that because it's just kind of boring, but there is something in there. Anyway, and he said, I beseech thee, shew me thy glory. Now this is highlighted in yellow because this is one of the passages that ancient alien theorists always point to if they're smart. Paul Wallace certainly did, and I imagine Eric von Daniken did as well. And he said, so Moses is saying, let's back up a sec here. Just to be clear, so after Moses met face to face, with in the tent, and the cloudy pillar was there, but Moses says to the Lord that he's not happy with what Yahweh had said about Yahweh sending an angel to go with them. And Moses wanted Yahweh himself to go with them. So that's what that conversation was about. And he said, so if I found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto him, if thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. So he's saying, yeah, you're saying your presence will go with us, but I still don't really believe you. And if your presence does not go with us, then don't take us any further. We don't want to go without you. Moses is feeling somewhat, I guess, sad that he's never going to see Yahweh again. And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name. And he said, I beseech thee, and this is Moses now saying, I beseech thee, shew me thy glory. So after begging Yahweh to not, leave them and put an angel in charge, the Yahweh agrees, okay, thinking probably that Moses won't be able to tell the difference between one of his angels and Yahweh. And he said, I will make... so then at the end of this conversation, Moses says that he wants to see the Lord's glory. Well, what does he mean by that? He means spaceship. Watch. And he said, I will make all of my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee. Again, speaking of himself in the third person. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will shew mercy on whom I will shew mercy. And he said, thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. No explanation is ever given. This phrase is found in multiple places in this book, Exodus, but there was never an explanation given for it. So there is none today either. We just have to speculate. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon a rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth by, that I will put thee in a cleft of the rock. Cleft means cleft. And will cover thee with my hand while I pass by. Okay? And I will take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. So this is very, very confusing, right, to anyone who's not thinking of a spaceship. Because what does he mean by it shall come to pass that while my glory passeth by? What does it mean when he says earlier, I will make all of my... And while my glory passeth by, that I will put... let me back up here a sec. I will make all my goodness pass before thee. Okay, all my goodness. Well, what does that mean? If you're a man-like creature who is Yahweh, what does all my goodness mean? And why would I need to be placed in a cleft so that I could not look upon you as you're approaching? And Yahweh says, you can't see my face. And so I don't know what we're talking about here, but it sure doesn't sound like a humanoid. It sounds like a spaceship, okay? And a spaceship that has some danger associated with it, and that's why he was placed in the cleft in the rock, so that he could be safe from the radiation, etc., etc., and not... I think that if he were to look at the ship head on, he would suffer some kind of damage to his eyes. So Yahweh is saying that you'll get to see me as I pass by. It's just that you won't get to see me at first. I'll cover your eyes with my hand as I pass by, but then I'll lift my hand, and you'll get to see my back parts. Which I'm seriously avoiding all temptation to go into a joke there. I'll just let you fill in the blanks there. Okay? Make sure you do write down the comments. Anyway, so let me read that again. And the Lord said, Behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon a rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth by, that I will put thee in a cleft of the rock, and will cover thee with mine hand while I pass by. And I will take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. And that's the end of that chapter. And I'll just pause real quickly here. Okay. Yeah, I just took a quick break there, and then I was thinking about, was it a spaceship? Or was it something, because it said that if we go back to the previous chapter at the end, and it shall come to pass while my glory passeth by, or no, it said, all right, let's go back to, and yeah, things are a little bit out of order in the Bible. All right, we'll get there. And the Lord said unto Moses, Hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount. Neither let the flocks nor herds feed before that mount. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and went up unto Mount Sinai, as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. And okay. And the Lord descended in the cloud, and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed by before him, and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth. What a joke. Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children, unto the 3rd and to the 4th generation. So in the same paragraph there, he's almost paragraph, he's saying that he is long-suffering. Not true. He wanted to smite the people after they made the calf, which, by the way, they only did because they thought they had been abandoned. So long-suffering is bullshit. And abundant in goodness and truth, yeah, you be the judge. I've made my judgments very clear. Keeping mercy for thousands, right? Forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. But that will by no means clear the guilty. And he's saying here that if they sin, he'll visit their sins upon the children, the innocent children of the fathers, and upon the children's children, unto the 3rd and 4th generation. No idea what the hell made him say that? It almost sounds like a sickness that would be with the people for generations, like 3 or 4 generations, and then finally phase out. You know, that's all I can think of. And Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. That was what worshiping was bowing your head towards the earth. I think I showed that earlier in the first half of this video. Okay, and Moses made haste and bowed his head towards the earth and worshipped. And he said, if now I have found grace in thy sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us, for it is a stiff-necked people. Kind of repeating what was said earlier. And pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. And he said, behold, I make a covenant. Before all thy people I will do marvels, such as has not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. And what he's referring to there, terrible meaning awesome in the Old English, you know, something that would generate awe. Observe thou, and what he's talking about is in the next paragraph, when he's the terrible thing that he's going to do. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. What is groves again? Their idols. So it was not like olive groves. It was their idols. Yahweh was, for some reason, not tolerant at all of, I guess, the worship of other gods. You know, he wanted that to be over with. And he considered himself to be the only true God, and certainly the most high of them all. No pun intended there. And for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Bible speak, you know. I'm jealous. My name is jealous. You're dang right I'm jealous. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after other gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eatest of his sacrifice, and thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, in the time of the month of Ahib. For in the month of Abib thou camest out from Egypt. So the unleavened bread is another mystery. Why is he against leaven? And I mean, from a metaphorical standpoint, leaven can be considered deception, because what it does to bread is it puffs it up. So it makes it look bigger than a piece of unleavened bread would be. And even though they weigh the same, one looks a lot bigger than the other, and so it's deceptive in that way. And so one might say that Yahweh was against puffing oneself up, and therefore that's what the feast was all about. But I don't think so. I don't think that's what it was about. I think that leaven being, in those days, what leaven was spoiled dough, fermented dough. And it was that fermentation that would then, when you mixed a little bit of it with normal, unspoiled dough, it would spread throughout the loaf. And then when you baked it, the whole thing would be puffed up. It may be that there was something about fermented dough that was interfering with the Passover. In the story of the Passover, it may be that the leaven would have interfered with whatever agent he inserted into the Passover lamb that they all ate. And boy, I'm really opening a can of worms here. I don't know if I can give you enough context for this, but I covered this in, let's see, what was it? Unleavened, the Passover event, which there is a video I have made on that, and I go into that extensively to explain what I think is going on there. And that's another amazing story. So if you're interested in that, go look for that video, and I will also eventually make another one. So now he's going on and sort of just talking about what he wants, what he wants them to do and what he wants them to observe. And here's one that is kind of strange. All that openeth the matrix is mine. What this means, the matrix is footnote, the womb. So what he's saying there is that the very firstborn is his, Yahweh's, whatever that means. And every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male, is also his. So the male firstborn of every human and every animal is his. What that means, I don't know. But it's very, very similar to the story of the Passover event, where it says that he killed all the firstborn of Egypt, not only of humans, but of animals as well. His technology targeted the firstborn of man and animals. But Israelites were immunized against this weapon. But the firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb. And if thou redeem him not, thou shalt break his neck. Then thou shalt break his neck. I don't know. All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. 6 days thou shalt work. So we're in the Ten Commandments, right? 6 days thou shalt work, but on the seventh day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. And thou shalt observe the Feast of Weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the year's end. Thrice in the year shall all your men and children appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee. In other words, before them on their journey where they're going. And enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man desire thy land when thou shalt go up to appear before the Lord thy God thrice in the year. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven. Neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left unto the morning. Now this is another very strange thing, because in the story of the Passover, when he described what to do, when he commanded them what to do with the Passover lamb, he first said that you shall cook it by fire and not by boiling. Okay. Well, why would that be? What would that matter, whether they boiled it or used fire to cook it? Well, I'm assuming that whatever agent he put in there into the lamb as an immunization agent would have been made ineffective if there was leaven in the bread that they ate. So apparently, and then on top of that, which was very strange, he said that you shall not leave any of it left over, like in the morning when they were about to, exit Egypt. Yahweh didn't want any of that Passover lamb left in Egypt. So he commanded them that if there is any leftovers, you should burn them thoroughly, so that nothing is left over. And now they're repeating this as a ritual. Yahweh is setting this up. And he's saying that you shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven. Neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left unto the morning. So, I can understand it was necessary during the Passover, but now in this ritual that he's describing, where they're going to observe this ritual of the Passover year by year, and he's saying the same thing: don't let any of it be left over until morning. Don't know why that would be the case, because now it's not about destruction of evidence, it's just something that they do. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring unto the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. Seethe being boil. Yeah, so again, just like the story of the Passover, it's don't boil the food. You roast it with fire. And the Lord said unto Moses, write these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. And I have a note here. What does my note say? Yahweh wrote on the original tablets, but this time Moses is doing the writing dictated by Yahweh. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. What is that J footnote? Literal for 10 words. Okay. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. So let me just back up a little bit and say that he was up there again another 40 days and 40 nights. And I know I touched on this in the first half of this second part, But I want to again mention that there is no reason why he would be gone 40 days and 40 nights again, because he's just going up there to get a replacement, okay? But this is what leads me to believe that there was a time displacement. And this time the people were more accustomed to this, and they knew that he was not gone forever, but he would be gone for a long time like he was last time. And now we have this additional detail that Moses conveys to us, that he neither ate bread nor even drank water, with no need to, by the way. It wasn't like the Yahweh was starving and starving him of food and drink. No. This is something that happens when you're in the presence of Yahweh. And it causes you to not need food or drink. And I don't think he was there for 40 days and 40 nights. But I think that was the perception down at the base of the mountain. Again, probably due to a temporal distortion. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh him. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. And Moses talked with them. And afterward all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. Until Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But when Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spoke unto the children of Israel that which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone. And Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with him. And I think that is the end. I think so. I think we have reached the end of our presentation. Aren't you glad? I am, because, yeah, that's it. That is it. So, thanks for hanging in with me. Really appreciate your patience, if you did show any. Not a lot of people watch these videos all the way to the end. That's kind of common, but I think a lot of my subscribers do, and I make no apologies. A long video is sometimes required, and especially for this stuff. And this was certainly a deep dive, but we have finally come to the end. So let me cue the music, if I've got the right music here. Yeah. So, this has been Larry Gurnt, and this is another episode of Emerging Truths. Long one. I hope you're doing well. I'm so-so. Still alive and happy to be. And I wanted to tell you, in the words of the great Jennifer Stone, go easy. And if you can't go easy, go as easy as you can.